Hi, welcome to the Slade Ham Experiment. I'm your host, me, Slade Ham, your captain, your pilot, your co-pilot, your flight attendant, your mechanic, your baggage attendant, your Uber driver. I'm all those things. This is my show. You're on the midnight spaceship. We're on a ride. I'm going to answer a couple of questions today from an Instagram poll. If I got time. What else? I'm overwhelmed by entertainment options. I'm probably going to bitch and complain about that. And on top of it all, aside from dealing with some personal things this last week, I have, can you see the poison ivy? There's a couple of trouble spots. I don't know if you can see this. I'm not taking well to it. It's the one thing in the world. This may be an answer to a question later, but I'm terrified of poison ivy. I've only had it a handful of times in my life, and they've all been terrible. I remember once, the first time I got it, my face swelled up like that chick in the mask or the dude in the mask or what with the puffy elephantitis, like. That's what I do. I get on my girl when I get bit by poison ivy. It's just terrible for me. My body reacts to it nuts. So one time I was like, I must have been early teens, 10, 12, somewhere in there. I weirdly remember my stepmom taking me to McDonald's after I got a cortisone shot, which to a child is so, if you've ever had a steroid shot, it's like squeezing chocolate syrup through a straw into your butt cheek, and it hurts. I remember she took me to McDonald's because my face was so swollen shut, like the whole side of it. I couldn't see out of one side. It was all puffing up, like someone should have hit me with one of those Pulp Fiction pins or something. None of that. We just went and we got a cortisone shot, and it slowly went down. And I realized that poison ivy and me are not friends. And then it happened again. I don't remember how exactly I got it, but I had to go. I know exactly when it was because I went with my dear friend Jeremy Harris to see the Rolling Stones. It was me, my crazy ex, Jeremy and his wife, to see the Rolling Stones open up NRG Stadium. It was the first event. So whatever that was, 2000, 2001, I had it terribly. I went to that concert with socks up. I had punched holes in them like I was going to a My Chemical Romance concert, but they were white socks. And they went up and covered up my poison ivy so I wasn't all scratching myself during the concert. And then I got it again when I opened my comedy club and I was doing the lawn outside because yard work sucks. And I was weed eating, and poison ivy, man, was just in the stuff I was weed eating. So, and this is like August in Texas. So it's hot. I'm pouring sweat. And that poison ivy juice is just in the air from the weed eater. And I'm all wiping my face and the sweat's dripping and I'm because you're doing work. And the thing about poison ivy is not like you got bit by a wasp where, pow, what was that? Oh, look, I'm swollen. No, it's so tricky because you don't even know where you got it. I don't know where I got this. Do you know poison ivy can take up to 10 days to manifest itself? You could just, because it's whatever comes in contact with the oil. I used to think if someone had poison ivy, stay away from me, like they had jumping AIDS or something, was going to get off them and come to me. Poison ivy's the rash isn't contagious. The oil that causes it is what screws you. So if you touch poison ivy and you think you touch, the best thing you can do is wash. And if you think you got some of it on your clothes, you should wash them immediately. If you think you got some of it on your boots, you should just burn them in hellfire because they're tainted for life. If it got on your dog, you got to shoot it. That's the rules. Poison ivy's bad. And the oil is hard to get rid of if you don't do it right. So that's what you got. You got to wash it as quick as you can. I didn't even know I got into it because I haven't been anywhere. I haven't been outside. I haven't been doing jack shit in terms of poison ivy adjacent activities. So where'd I get it? I don't know. But I got it. And I don't know, because it takes up to 10 days to pop up, where all it may be. So that's patient 0, which isn't getting worse, but there's other little spots that probably, well, that wasn't there yesterday on the back of my wrist. Where else is it going to show up? Is my face going to... I'm trying to fight it with an oral steroid, as everything I do is self-medicated now. What can I not fix? I'm going to do knee surgery on myself in 2025. That's where I'm at. I got psychology down. I got dermatologic down. All right, whatever. So that if I just keep reaching off camera and scratching, that's why. It's TBD where this ends up. What's wrong with me? Why am I talking an acronym? Do you know I type like that now? I use specifically in journals and notes and in stand-up writing, anything I'm writing digitally, and now even in my notebooks. This is the dynamic nature of language. I use the abbreviations BC and RN for because and right now, even when I'm writing. Long ago, I went to shorthand. It's not new, right? Without W/O. Shorthand's not new, but this new shorthand is. It's the vernacular I use when I text, and it's a little freaky that it's working into my regular life. I came on. I just need to vent this week. I just need to focus camera. Who was I talking to? Me or the camera? It just feels good to have a sorting out place. I'm waiting on I'm waiting on the new Deadpool movie because I haven't been watching much of anything, and I just watched the Marvels in the interim. Something to tide me over, right? I slogged through Loki. I made it through that, and then when this movie came out, I'll wait. Y'all remember, I've been the biggest Marvel fanboy there ever possibly could be. My stacks of comics come to life. I have long touted the MCU as the single greatest artistic endeavor by mankind. I don't know, I've said this before, whether the pyramids took more people over a longer period of time. I do know the pyramids were built by slaves, which makes them different than Disney. But when it comes to Marvel, you should ask some of the creators and comic book artists who made some of the properties you so dearly love how much money they've made off of the universe that now exists because of them. And there is an argument that could be made that they are also slave labor. So what's important, though, is that there was a point when there was the right amount of Marvel, when it was coming out with a frequency that I could tolerate. It was just enough to keep me satisfied. If you read the 22 immutable laws of marketing, you'll discover such gems as one way to maintain a long-term demand for your product is to never totally satisfy the demand. Well, Marvel, I'm a little full. You're dumping never-ending breadsticks on the table, despite the fact that most of the people at the table are clearly gluten intolerant at this point. Maybe it's time to slow your roll and introduce a protein or perhaps a break in between all of the bread you keep shoveling into our faces. Deadpool is the franchise I enjoy the most out of everything that's happened in the superhero universe. And that's important because I want to equate it to another franchise or two from my youth. Star Wars, Star Trek. They were the big two. Now it's Star Wars and Marvel. But let's go back to the big two, circa 1976. At the time, these are the stats. Between those two properties, over the course of the 6 years it took to release the Star Wars trilogy, the big two, Star Wars and Star Trek, released 5 movies. 5. Over 6 years. It's a lot of waiting for something in your favorite genre, right? Star Trek's 1 and 2, the original Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Be another 4 years before Star Trek tried a TV series. And I think all of the characters from those series own the souls of male children of that era. Now cut to my franchise, Deadpool now. And in the 6 similar years between Deadpool 2 and Deadpool 3, same amount of time we covered in the 70s. The big two companies, these are Marvel and DC. We're just going to look at comic book films. Slightly more than 5. This is what's come out between Deadpool 2 and Deadpool 3. You ready? Ant-Man, the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man Far From Home, Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, The Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Thor, Love and Thunder, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, The Marvels, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, the TV show, Loki, What If 2, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Secret Invasion, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, also the regular Venom, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Morbius, Madam Web, Jesus Christ, that really came out. There was also TV, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, The Punisher. Go to DC, Aquaman, Aquaman 2, Shazam, Joker, Birds of Prey, and the blah, 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 Harley Quinn. Wonder Woman 1984, what the fuck was that? Justice League, The Suicide Squad, The Batman, Black Adam, Mo is in that. Shazam, Fury of the Gods, Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, we're off to their TV. Batwoman, Black Lightning, Superman and Lois, Stargirl, Pennyworth, Watchmen, Swamp Thing, Peacemaker, The Sandman. Did I miss anything? Now, Deadpool 3. It's you can see how it might be too much when you say it all in a row. Those are just the big properties, man. I didn't even touch Star Wars. Do you know that Star Trek now has had 13 movies, 46 seasons of television that encompasses 900 episodes? Why are you still telling some of these stories? All right. I just need to get that out. That's a lot of content, most of which is mediocre. A couple of questions, then I got to bounce. I'll save this one for last. This one. What's the most scared you've ever been? These came from Instagram. If you want to ask questions, you can do so on Discord. Instagram is usually where I put the questions out, but you can also do so on Facebook. What is the most scared you've ever been? Okay. There are 2 types of scared, and I think there's an important distinction here. There is real scared, and then there's imagined scared. And I deal with the imagined scared often, and I think decently well. I do a lot of mental exercises of imagining worst case scenarios, not in a panicky, freak myself out, hypochondriac kind of way, but in a realistic, what if? Am I prepared for these? I walk my way through that. So when it comes to the big existential fears, those aren't the ones that scare me. The ones that do, the most scared I've ever really, truly felt was, I think, in that, and this is bubbling up because I'm talking about this old relationship in this new show. And those were acute fears. Those were if you've ever been in a fight, like a real fight. And I wonder what the percentage is of people, you can leave a comment if you want, who have been in a physical fist fight, whether they've been jumped or mugged or robbed, or they've been in an altercation with a friend or neighbor or family member. Or I used to take all this for such granted, and then I realized there's people who grow up differently. So if you've ever been, I use that as an example, a touchstone, because I know the emotion of a flashy kind of immediate fear. And that also applied to that relationship, right? Like big fears, the big existential stuff that are maybes, that are nebulous, that aren't real, that are just sort of my imagination, right? The stuff I'd confront, say at the beginning of the pandemic, is stand-up going to come back? Do I have a career? What am I going to do? Even more recently, right? Do I still have a career? Is stand-up going to be a career? Like, I deal with that shit every day. But you adjust to that, right? Because the monster never really shows up. You at some point, you go, all right, well, if I just stave this off till tomorrow, we're fine, right? Look around the campfire, make sure everybody's safe, get you a couple hours of sleep, get back up, fight the dragons the next day. I live in that world. So I can deal with those fears. I know how to push them off and deal with the immediate. But for instance, when I was in that psychotic relationship, there were nights when I can remember she would go out drinking. All right. So for context, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I was in about a 7.5-year relationship with a girl who had an incredibly abusive relationship with a lot of substances and a lot of vices. And we were toxic to one another. And I certainly, while I will not take responsibility for the majority of the insanity, I am far from not complicit in that not working. If I said that right. Try to take some blame for a terrible nightmare of a scenario that wasn't really my fault. But there were nights that she would come back from drinking or gambling or doing drugs 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was working at a radio station at the time. I was doing the morning show. So I would be, it's 2002. God, I stayed in that a long time after this. Anyway, I would have to get up in the morning and be on the air at 6 a.m. Now, we lived very close to the radio station. I could drive there in under 4 minutes. But I would wake up at 5. I would take a shower. I would make a cup of coffee. I would get my backpack, collect my thoughts. I would go down to the radio station, make another cup of coffee, chat with my on-air partner at the time, and then we'd fire off the show. I would go to bed by midnight. And fear is going to bed and not knowing, one, where the person you're in a relationship with is, for a number of reasons, right? There's fear that is the imagined kind, right? The kind we were talking about before. Just my brain filling in the dots, right? What's she doing? Where's she at? Who's she with? Is she cheating? That was always a possibility. She was cheating whore. But that was one of the things on the table. So you're laying there wondering, is that the case? Then you're laying there wondering, did she hit somebody at the casino? Did she get locked up? Did she total her car? She was good at totaling a car. I remember her. She bought a car on the way home from the casino one day because she just had some winnings, and then she totaled it. Thrown through the windshield. Like, I'll go to the hospital and check. Am I here to identify the body, or am I here to collect the soiled clothes that were ripped from her as she was flung through the windshield? Because this is just Thursday. She wrecked another car a few months back. She got a DWI. Like, this was the fear that was every single day, where you're just, what's going to happen? And so when she's gone, your brain is trying to figure out what nightmare scenario is most likely. It's if you go to that place regularly, it's a dangerous place. You shouldn't be in that relationship. I see people sometimes, they'll have a perfectly normal relationship, and then out of the blue, they won't be able to get a hold of their significant other. Like once, just one random time out of the blue. And they'll immediately be like, they're cheating. I'm like, oh, this is so much deeper than that, right? Your brain should go to a happy place. Oh, they stopped to get flowers for the house. Oh, they must have stopped to give me a surprise. Oh, they must be working late because they're passionate about their job and they're happy to be. Like, that's where your brain should go if someone doesn't get a hold of you, not immediately to the terrible. My brain went to the terrible because the terrible continuously happened. It was likely. So you're laying there with all those thoughts, worried, scared because they're not home. You know you got to fall asleep because you got to get up at 6. But you also don't want to fall asleep because you kind of got to be on guard in case they do come home. Because that was the thing. She's going to come in drunk. She's going to come in high. She's going to come in mad that she lost all her money. I'm the only one to take that out on. So now she's got to turn on the lights, make a bunch of noise, wake me up. Then she's got to yell at me for being awake. Then she's got to, it's like this whole mechanism starts. So you're laying there wondering if you got to keep your wits about you to have that fight at 2:30 in the morning. And then maybe if you're lucky, you quell that, you squelch it all down. And at 4, you can get about a 45-minute nap in before you got to go be funny on the radio. Or the night you're taping your special, not your special, but your first album the next day. And you got your mini disc recorder and everything's ready. And she's in the fight with you in the kitchen. She breaks the mini disc recorder. And you still got to get your wits about you. And is she going to follow me to Houston and ruin this thing for me? Like, oh, so many things you got to worry about. But the most fear is when you're laying there and they do come home and they start that fight and you don't participate the way you're supposed to. And you can't, because how would you know? You can't speak crazy. There's no Rosetta Stone for that. You're just winging it. When you get it wrong and you find yourself one night, I remember this distinctly. She came in with a steak knife. And like, I never really thought that she was going to intentionally kill. Like, that was never really a thing. But it was always all the ingredients are there. And it's just, when you got a slightly crazy person and a steak knife and a victim, and they're all in the same place, and anger, you don't know what's going to catalyze that. So I remember one night she came in and she was on top of me with this knife up against my throat. And I'm just sort of laying there. Like, you could feel the serrated edge. It wasn't pressing hard. I never thought, she's about to slit my throat. But it was like, if I don't do something, what if she sneezes? What if I cough? And I remember it's the only time I've ever done anything that wasn't just grab her and hold her till she calmed down. I remember grabbing her wrist and sort of doing an arm bar and flipping her off the bed till she let go of the knife, and then I let go of her arm. I remember being scared that night. It was like an acute fear, like when you're in the heart of it and it's just primal, man. Like what a deer feels when it hears a gunshot, what an animal feels like when it's being chased. If you've never felt it, count yourself among the lucky, I think, till the end times come, and then you don't have that muscle that the rest of us got, and we'll eat you first. So there you go. There's the most scared I've ever been, I think. And I've been jumped and I've been chased with a gun. I've been in some stuff, but that's definitely the worst there. All right, one more question. I think the special comes out April 2nd. I should show you the intro. I could probably just do that. I'll do it next week. I'll play the intro. I'll play some cool stuff next week. I got information for you. Stay tuned. April 2nd might be the date. One more question. Who has the best tacos, California or Texas? No questions asked. None. It's hands down Texas. There's an old saying my buddy Mike Vance reminded me of. Mike Vance, part of the old Houston comedy scene, an old workshop annex guy, a Houston legend. He said that there's an old saying that Mexicans coming to the U.S. Turned right to Texas if they could cook and left to California if they could fix cars. And the rest is history. Cali, your tacos are just a bunch of cilantro-covered, dry, cold-ass, probably overtaxed. And where do you get the best ones in Houston? People want to ask me all the time. Pick a taqueria, walk in. The less English they speak, the better. You can't go wrong. Get you some tacos. Enjoy your life. Turn off your TV. And love yourself. I'll see you on another episode of the Slade Ham Experiment soon.